I'll tell you in a minute. Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the Ted Show. This man here is a longtime mentor. Used to be my giant big boss back in the day when I was real young, and I was scared to death that I didn't want to make him mad. I'm very honored to have Paul Snead Jr. with us. Paul Snead has been a public servant, or was a public servant for most of his career, and continues to give back to the community. He is on the Board of Governors here. He's emeritus, as we say. And he's participating because we're doing the Black History Month series. And of course, we're doing a Black History Month initiative here at Citrus Club to highlight our Board of Governors. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good being here.
I'm excited to have you in person. It's always a great energy. We have a great time when we're together. You are smart, funny, full of tea. You got all the good inside stuff. But most importantly, you were very supportive of me during my very early career, right out of college, and I appreciate that. So I'm excited.
My pleasure.
I get to give you shout out. All right. So we talked before we went live. The audience loves origin stories. So they want to know a little bit about you, kind of your journey through public service. And then we will start talking about Black History Month after that.
Okay. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I moved to Florida in 1964. My wife is from Altamont Springs. She's original Floridian.
Woo.
We met in Nashville. She attended Fisk University, and I attended Tennessee State. I had the honor of attending a parochial school in Birmingham, and there were only 27 kids in my graduating class from high school. One of the unique things is I didn't have a Black instructor until I got to Tennessee State. I was taught by nuns, and if you've ever seen a ruler, you know about being compliant. Being compliant.
I wasn't expecting that, but as soon as you said nuns, I kind of tightened up. I knew where we were going.
I think that beginning did a lot to mold me, morality, staying with it. The nuns made you stand up before the class. You had to read the paper, and you had to talk about current events. And I give a lot to the nuns in Birmingham who had a lot to do with molding character.
I love that. And you have been a public servant your entire professional career. Is that correct?
That's
Tell them
true.
about that. So you started, I think I read somewhere in the bio, 1966-ish or something crazy. Tell us about that journey. Why public service?
Well, when I moved to Altamont Springs with my wife, we stayed in Birmingham for a year, and she really didn't like the cold weather, so she's a native Floridian. I taught school, fourth grade, for a year and a month, and I soon figured that wasn't for me. And I had a gentleman to come out to the school that dealt with delinquent young people, and I queried him about a job. So I started in 1966 with Children and Family Services. And I was involved with 33 years with HRS, children, the detention homes, mental health, AFDC, the whole gamut in 4-county area here. As I said earlier, I did that for 33 years. I retired at the age of 57 after having 6 bypasses, and I thought this was not for me. So since 1997, I've done nothing but involve myself in public service, in the community, in different boards, and it's been indeed an honor. I've worked with 100 Black Men, where we work with kids at Jones High School. A friend of mine, Ron Rogers, was the founder, and he convinced me to be the founding president. So we've collected about $2 million to help young people from Jones High School to go off to college. We've been successful. We have people in the Ambassador Corps. We've had young people that finish Cornell. We've had some lawyers. And I'm very gratified that we've had that kind of success with the kids from Jones High School.
Where did you get your heart for public service? Did you grow up like that? Did your family give back? Because I think it takes a very special human being to really dedicate their lives to giving back, to be a public servant, a servant leader. Did you grow up with that? Was it innate? Did you learn it? Tell us.
Well, I grew up, both of my parents were educated through the 12th grade. They did work in the community. But after teaching school and seeing so many underprivileged kids and working in the state of Florida, I had some very rural counties. I had Polk, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, Sumter, and Lake County. And I found a lot of people who were in need. And once I got to be the district administrator, we had approximately 3,000 employees. And you couldn't live in those four counties and not be a client of HRS. And a lot of people said, well, I'm not a client. They thought it had to do with food stamps and AFDC. But at that time, we had the health department, we had vital statistics, we had birth certificates. Yes. So everybody in that particular area was a client of ours. And it was indeed a rewarding, taxing job. But we had some good outcomes, and I feel very fortunate to have been involved with that work.
It helped. I worked way down the line from Paul in the ADM, which is alcohol, drug abuse, and mental health. And I just remember when I would go to a meeting and I knew you were going to be there. Of course, there was all that fear. Not that you ever created it. It's just you're the big dude. You were the head man in charge. And so we would sit in meetings, and what I distinctly remember is your passion for helping. It didn't matter that you were the big boss. You were really interested in what not only your employees were saying, but really to get to a viable solution, which in some of those instances, I was on the TPR committee a lot. We had a committee or a group terminating parental rights. You just had a passion for what you were doing. And there was no going into it thinking that you had already had preconceived notions. You really listened to everybody. And I just remember that clearly. And that's what a leader does. And so a servant leader, it's so important to have that. So I reflect very fondly on my time at HRS because of you and because of the leadership that you showed during that time. And that is not an easy job for all of you in it. God bless you, because any part of, now it's called DCF, right? Any time that you are working and you are trying to work on a shoestring budget a lot of times, and you are trying to make an impact, change lives, it is taxing. It is gets on you. You have 6 bypasses. You know, these are the things that happen. But when you have a love for it and a passion, and you want to help people, what you do is palpable. And I give you great respect and lots of kudos.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
February is Black History Month. We're doing a series here. Do you celebrate Black History Month with your family, you personally? And if so, what do you do?
Well, that's a misnomer. Every day is Black History. I have 2 children who have been very fortunate. And I've got 3 grandchildren. One of the things you have to do, and I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and what the community was Dynamite Hill. And the 4 little girls that were killed at the church, the windows at my house shook. I live about 6 blocks from where the church bombing was. One of the young ladies who was killed in the bombing was my roommate in college's sister. It was a very turbulent time in Birmingham, especially being a young Black man. And I've seen great changes. We're at a point now where we're digressing. And the thing that concerns me most of all is that we celebrate, or some people celebrate, Black history for 28 days during February. And if you forget from whence you come, it tends to repeat itself. And I'm sort of in awe now that a lot of things are digressing through our legislature, both locally and throughout the country. And it's sort of a mortal sin to say that I'll be 82 come May 1st. And I've seen things come and go. And I'm worried about my grandbabies now as to what the world they will grow up in, because we're in dire straits right now.
Why do you think that the shift? Because I feel like looking on the outside in as an old white man, I feel like there has been progress in our city area, but I understand what you're saying. Tell us why. Why do you think that we have digressed, and what's the solution to that? How can somebody who's watching this, who is just as upset, worried, concerned for their grandbabies or their babies, what can we do to move it forward to stop it digressing?
You know, the simplistic answer to that question is treat people the way you would like to be treated. And there seems to be a two-edged sword. Do as I say, not as I do. And that really hurts. With the pandemic, it hasn't helped at all. A lot of people have cloistered themselves. A lot of people are breaking out of their shell, and we're having a lot of violence and what have you. And I think it's a mental health problem. And it's hard to say, but I think 24-hour news has been a deterrent, because we hear things lickety split and people are reacting to it. And as I said earlier, do as I say and not as I do. And that greatly concerns me for our health, both physically and our mental health. We are on a collision course.
Which I think is why, and I'll ask you this, you sort of touched on it. I think it's one of the reasons, one of the many reasons why having a month to celebrate and to focus and bring awareness, it's not the answer, but it is where a lot of dialogue can begin to take place and continue to take place. That's why it's so important to not just have a picnic or a happy hour for Black History Month. It's really to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, figure out what it is that we can do as a community, globally and locally, to move it forward, move the needle forward and not backwards. So what would you say? Why do you think having the month is important?
Well, I think it is important, but people like yourself that are highlighting it, a lot of people just tune it out. Some of our local television stations have snippets of people who have been there and done that. And I'm concerned about the young people, their attire, their disrespect, and what have you. So those are the people that are going to be our future and are going to be in charge when we're in nursing homes and ACLFs. And I'm really concerned as to the hate and the friction that we're going to have to live with. Education is the key, and formal education is one thing, but street sense and love one another and don't mistreat each other. And there is quite a friction going on. And some of it comes from our leadership.
Great. I could not agree anymore. All right. I have one question for you that's off topic a little bit, but maybe not. When I say the word hero, who's the first person that comes to mind for you?
I think Martin. And
Tell me why.
Well, I was in Birmingham with Martin Luther King when he had SCLC. And the nonviolent thing is, it takes a lot of strength to do that. I was in Nashville, Tennessee, when the riots were going on and the sit-ins were going on at the Crest and what have you. And I don't know whether you call it chicken or violent, but I never participated in that because I don't think I have the wherewithal to be nonviolent. And I've seen young ladies with syrup and sugar sprinkled in their hair. And why? Why did that kind of thing happen? And Martin, with his nonviolent, people like Andy Young and John Lewis. John Lewis was at Fisk with my wife. And that wasn't a thing that just got as he became adult. When he was in college, it was the same John Lewis. He gave of himself. And I really mean that. He gave of himself for the good of our country.
I agree. All right, Paul, if they want to find out more about you, reach out to you. Mr. Snead is not on social media. What is that? And that's okay. I love it. But I feel like you have this amazing legacy, you have this information, you have this life experience that humanizes, puts real emotions, a real human being, which is why these shows and this awareness is so important. I have a great deal of respect for Martin Luther King Jr., but it's so amazing to hear your stories of it, your first hand account. And that's the kind of emotion that I think motivates people. That passion motivates them. So if they want to reach out to you, is there a good way for them to do that?
Well, I do it with some trepidation. I don't text and I don't do email, but I have a phone, 407-719-9740. But I tend not to answer it if the name isn't in my phone.
That's right.
Because with spam and all the crank calls you get, as I said, I'm 82 and I don't need any kind of aggravation in my life. Ted Bogert is a special person in my life, and I consented to do this because of Ted Bogert. And a lot of people see you as an old fart and they don't want to listen to you and say, what does he do? And he doesn't do any of the social media and stuff. So I tend to work with young people at Jones High School. They're sort of a captive audience. And with young people now, they sort of push you off to the side as you don't know what you're talking about. But I've been involved with about 15 boards in Central Florida, and I was in a position to make a difference. And I would advise any young people to involve yourself. There are three things you have: treasure, involvement, and there are others that you can involve. Don't sit on the sideline. The biggest thing we have now is the ballot. And if you don't vote, I don't even want to talk to you.
Great, because that is where you make your voice heard. Mm-hmm. And don't discount it. Don't listen to all of the rigmarole out there that it doesn't matter, because it really does matter. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm honored to call you my friend. It was an honor to work with you for all those years. It's an honor to have you on the board here at Citrus Club. And I'm thankful you came out. See, it wasn't as painful as you thought, was it?
Not at all.
Okay, see? We have a good time, but we educate and we inform here, and we do it in a positive way. Thank you for sharing your journey. Paul Snead Jr. on the show. First time. I'm loving it. I really appreciate it. You'll have to come back. I want to hear more about your journey.